are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for
keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have you guys here on this Friday, October 4th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today. Before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that Super Chat button to create a Super Chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the live broadcast. I will acknowledge it, and it just makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. We appreciate your guys' viewership each and every day, so any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also, the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, gsmcpodcast.net. That is gsmcpodcast.net. So, let's get into what we are going to discuss for today. So, we're going to start off the show. We're going to recap last night's game between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. That was probably the game of the year so far. So we'll get into that. Then in the second part of the show, I'll talk about the Bills-Texans game, Stephon Diggs playing against his former team. It's a big matchup between the Bills and the Texans, so we'll talk about it. Then in the third part of the show, we will preview the Sunday night game between the Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. In the fourth part of the show, we'll get into talking about the game in London between the Vikings and the Jets. And then in the final part of the show, we'll kind of go through the rest of the matchups for the weekend, as well as talking about the big matchups in college football. So let's get into the first topic, which is talking about last night's game between the Falcons and the Buccaneers. So the Falcons, they won this game 36-30 in overtime. It was a back and forth game. Like I said, this game probably is game of the year so far. Very entertaining from start to finish. And let's kind of go through it. So the Falcons, they were coming off of a win against the Saints at the buzzer. Younghoe Koo kicked a 58-yard field goal to win the game. Falcons didn't score an offensive touchdown in that game, but they were still able to win at 26-24 over the Saints. And then for the Buccaneers, they were coming off of an impressive win over the Eagles, 33-16. And the Falcons' offense was kind of looking to find its footing because through these first 4 weeks, at times it looks like, hey, here we go. This is how it's going to be. And then, they go back to struggling. Like, they struggled against the Saints. They struggled against the Steelers to start off the year. The Eagles game, Kirk Cousins looked better in the second half of that game. It's just, and against the Chiefs, the first drive of the game, they went down the field and scored a touchdown. But, again, they were really looking to get it going. And this was the game where this offense really got it going. So the Falcons got the ball to start off the game. They went 7 plays, 70 yards. Second play of the game, Kirk Cousins hits Kyle Pitts for 32 yards. And Pitts had a good game. No touchdowns in the game, but still had about, I think, 88 yards receiving. We'll take a look at the box score in a second. But then Kirk Cousins connected with Drake London, who also had a big game for an 18-yard touchdown. So that made it 7-0 Falcons. However, the Buccaneers, they did answer. They went 9 plays, 63 yards down the field, 4 minutes, 18 seconds of time of possession, and Baker Mayfield connected with Mike Evans for a 2-yard touchdown, so that tied the game. Then the Falcons, they were driving, and it was interesting because they attempted a field goal with Younghoe Koo, and he missed a 46-yarder. However, there was a defensive offsides, so I was like, okay, well, he's going to make this one, right? He ended up missing that one too. So Falcons ended up not getting any points. Then the Bucs, they went down the field, got into field goal range, and Chase McLaughlin kicked a 53-yard field goal to make it 10-7. Then the Falcons responded with the touchdown drive. Part of it was set up by a 22-yard pass play from Kirk Cousins to Cordero Hodge, and this is not the last time we will be mentioning his name. And then Cousins connected with Darnell Mooney, and he threw that into a tight window. I mean, there were 3 Buccaneers guys there, but Cousins fitted in that window. Mooney made the play and got the touchdown. This was on 3rd and 13. A 24-yard touchdown reception, and that made it 14-10. Then the Buccaneers, they answered 3 plays, 44 yards down the field, and Baker Mayfield connected with Mike Evans for a 23-yard touchdown, so that made it 17-14. Then the Falcons, they tied the game. They went 8 plays, 34 yards. Younghoe Koo kicked a 54-yarder to tie it. Then the Buccaneers, they answered with another touchdown. Rachaad White, a 56-yard run to set it up. Looked like he was going to take it to the house, but got tackled at the Falcons' 15-yard line. And then later in the drive on 3rd and goal, Baker Mayfield connected with Sterling Shepard for a 4-yard touchdown. They were kind of short at receiver last night. There was no Trey Palmer in this game and still no Jalen McMillan. So Sterling Shepard, he stepped up, made a play last week, or a couple plays last week against the Eagles, and he gets a touchdown here from Baker Mayfield. So that made it 24-17. And that was the score at the half. Again, very entertaining. Then we go to the second half. Bucs punted, and then the Falcons on their first drive, another Younghoe Koo field goal for 48 yards. So I did have the score at 24-20. It was 24-20 at one point, but that ended up not being the final score. Then the Buccaneers, they answered with the field goal. Chase McLaughlin from 32 yards out to make it 27-20. And then the Falcons, a couple of big chunk plays, 22 yards to Ray McCloud, a 28-yard run by Bijan Robinson. And on 4th and 4 from the Buccaneers 12, Kirk Cousins connected with Darnell Mooney for his second touchdown. This is from 12 yards out. And that tied the game. Then the Bucs responded with another field goal by Chase McLaughlin, a 53-yarder. That made it 30-17. And then Younghoe Koo's field goal got blocked. And you kind of thought at that point that the Bucs, maybe were going to win this game. And they started driving. I mean, they kept running the football, and, they were playing the clock really well. And you thought, well, they're going to get it down, and this is going to be the end of the game. But so Bucky Irving, 1st and 10 from the 32, he ends up fumbling. Great play by Jesse Bates. He knocked the ball out, and the Falcons recovered the fumble, and they had a chance to go down the field and either tie it or potentially win the game at that point. And Kirk Cousins got sacked. There was first Tyler Algier ran the football. He lost 2 yards. Then Kirk Cousins got sacked, and then it was 3rd and 19. Kirk Cousins connected with Algier later in the drive for a 4-yard pass play. So it was 4th and 15, and then he gets intercepted by Levante David. So at that point, I thought, okay, now the game is over. But it was not. The Falcons still had all 3 of their timeouts, and they used them. So what was interesting was, so on 1st and 10, Rachaad White loses 3 yards. Then there was a penalty on the Buccaneers that really set them back. I think, so there was a holding on the Bucs, but I think there was a face mask call that was missed that would have offset the penalties, but that ended up not happening. Then it was 3rd and 25, and they kind of just ran it with Bucky Irving for 1 yard. But however, on that play, Mike Evans was wide open, and Baker Mayfield didn't see him. And that would have been a walk-in touchdown. But Baker didn't see him. The Falcons, they were anticipating the run, and Baker just didn't see Mike Evans. So they ended up punting, and the Falcons, they got into field goal range. They were able to clock it with 1 second left, because it was 2nd and 10 from the Bucs 43, and Kirk Cousins connected with Drake London. They were able to do it. And that made me think back to the 49ers-Cowboys playoff game from a few years ago where they were not able to clock it. And it's really interesting how other teams are able to do it fine, but the Cowboys just weren't able to do it. I just thought that was funny. That was where my mind went on that. So Younghoe Koo ended up kicking a 52-yard field goal, but there actually was a delay of game penalty right before that. So you thought, oh no, is Younghoe Koo going to miss it again? But no, he didn't. He made it from 52 yards. And we went to overtime. And the Falcons got the ball. And Drake London ends up getting hurt. So Cordero Hodge has to come back in. And he scores the game-winning touchdown from 45 yards out. And the Falcons end up getting the win. Kirk Cousins, props to him. They really got it going in this game, this offense. He ended up passing for 509 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was unbelievable in this game. And this is why, now he's not going to do this every single week, but this is why the Falcons got Kirk Cousins. If they had Desmond Ridder, they're not winning this game. They're not. But with Kirk Cousins, he was a difference maker in this game. Again, he's not going to throw for 500 yards every single week, but this is very encouraging that he got it going along with this offense. And, the Falcons, they only ran the ball for 73 yards. Bijan Robinson only had 61 yards on the ground. Algier only 12. But look at here are the stats for the pass catchers. So Cordero Hodge only had 2 receptions for 67 yards and a touchdown. But the 45-yard touchdown to win the game, that made a difference. Ray McCloud had 6 for 66. Kyle Pitts, 7 for 88. Darnell Mooney, 9 for 105 yards and 2 touchdowns, targeted 16 times in this game. And I forgot to mention, he had a drop. I think it was the second to last drive of regulation. That, if he catches that, this game might be over in regulation. That was a big drop. You thought that was going to end up costing the Falcons the game, but that was not the case. And also Drake London, 12 receptions on 13 targets for 154 yards and a touchdown. Actually, I want to see, where was that crucial drop? Because I think it was on the missed field goal attempt, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, so it was on 3rd and 6 with 6:42 left in the game, and Mooney dropped it. That was at the Tampa 36-yard line, and that's what led to Younghoe Koo's field goal being blocked. So you thought, yeah, this is it for the Falcons. But no, that was not the case. They end up getting the win, and then for the Buccaneers, Baker Mayfield, not a ton of yards passing, but he was good last night. 19-24, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Bucs ran the ball for 160 yards. That's something that they've struggled to do so far this year. Rashad White, 72 yards on the ground, 44 yards on the ground for Bucky Irving. Baker Mayfield at 42 yards on the ground. Chris Godwin, 5 for 64. Mike Evans, 5 for 62 and 2 touchdowns. Cade Otton had 3 for 44. The Bucs defense, 4 sacks in this game. I mean, the offensive line gave Kirk Cousins protection, and, they are missing 2 starters. So, this was big that they were able to do this. And then for the Falcons, they only had 1 sack of Baker Mayfield. But actually, Baker got hurt in this game. Got twisted up, getting tackled, and that could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, he was okay, was able to finish the game. So, should be good to go for next week. But that could have been a lot worse. But thankfully, he was, like I said, he was okay. But yeah, this was a big win for the Falcons. I mean, it looked like that they were going to lose, but they snatched victory from the jaws of defeat. And now both teams are tied at 3-2 for the NFC South lead. And the Saints, they gotta win on Monday to keep pace with these two teams, because right now, again, it's week to week, the NFL, but right now these are the two teams battling it out for the division. The Saints, they started off 2-0, now they're 2-2, but they got to figure it out. I mean, it doesn't get any easier for them because they take on the Chiefs, but got to find a way to get a win to keep pace with these two teams, because right now these are the two front runners right here. And the fact that this offense got it going for the Falcons, that is very encouraging. And, once you get your offensive line fully healthy, and Kirk Cousins continues to play like this, I mean, and now he's building that rapport with his weapons. You got to like where they're going. But both defenses a little concerning. The Bucs, they're still missing guys on defense. Antoine Winfield Jr., also Jamal Dean got hurt in this game, so that wasn't good. But for the Bucs, I mean, that is kind of a gut punch, that loss. But they got to bounce back. But their schedule, I was looking at it, it does get tougher. So, and for the Falcons, I know they take on the Panthers next week. So, and for the Buccaneers, who do they play next week? Well, I'll just run through their schedule really quick. So actually, they take on the Saints in New Orleans. Then they take on the Ravens and the Falcons at home, at the Chiefs, and then home for the 49ers week 10. That is a tough schedule coming up. And, Baker Mayfield and that team and the Bucs have played well this year. So hopefully, you don't lose all those games. I don't anticipate they will, but they're very tough games on the schedule. So, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. Very entertaining. One of the best games we've had on Thursday night in a while. I know a lot of people were saying that. But yeah, let me know in the comments any of your thoughts you have from it. So we're going to take our first break of the show, and then when we come back, we will talk about Stefon Diggs facing off against his former team, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills taking on C.J.Stroud and the Houston Texans. So, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the big game between the Bills and the Texans. There are a lot of big games this weekend, so I just wanted to be able to focus on some individual ones. And then, towards the end, like I said, we'll at the beginning of the show, we'll cover all the other games as well. But this is one of the big games of the weekend. And there's storylines that go into this game, of course. Stefon Diggs facing off against the Buffalo Bills, the team he was with most recently. He did face off against the Vikings a couple weeks ago, and, the Vikings destroyed the Texans. But, this is going to be a different kind of game here. I don't anticipate the Texans getting destroyed in this game. But I do expect this game to be very competitive. I do. The Bills are coming off of a blowout loss to the Ravens. The Texans barely squeaking by the Jacksonville Jaguars. But, yeah, the big storyline here is, of course, Stefon Diggs facing off against the Bills. And, obviously, they're going to say it's just another game, which it's true. But, I anticipate that Diggs is going to play really well in this game. I think I wouldn't be surprised if he scores a touchdown here. But when it comes to these two teams, though, I did bring this up. The Texans, I still think they are a very good team, but I don't know. I just feel like they haven't hit their stride yet. Now, there are certain players that have hit their stride. I mean, C.J.Stroud is playing well. Nico Collins is, I think is at top of the league in receiving yards this year. He's playing really well. But I don't know. I feel like the Texans, they still haven't taken that next step yet. Because you look at some of the, you look at the games so far this year, and I brought it up yesterday. They barely got by the Bears. The Colts are inconsistent, but, you barely beat them, and then you barely beat Jacksonville. And I know that's a division rival, but Jacksonville has been the worst team in football, arguably. They're the only team that doesn't have a win yet, and they almost beat the Texans. So, and, the Texans, I think, should have been able to win by a couple of scores against some of these teams, but that hasn't been the case. And then, a true test against the Vikings, they got blown out. So what are the Texans right now? Again, I still think they are a very good team, and I think they are going to win their division. But I'm still waiting on them to take that next step. Now, part of the problem is there's an absence of a running game. Joe Mixon had a great week 1, but then he gets hurt against the Bears in week 2, and we don't know if he's going to come back or not this week. Hopefully he does, because I need him in fantasy. But getting him back would be huge. That would be a huge boost for this offense. But, yeah, I don't know. It's just they have not taken that next step. And then for the Bills, look, the Bills, when they started off 3-0, I had them at number 1 in the power rankings. But then I dropped them down to 5. The defense did not play well. Really nobody played well against the Ravens. Josh Allen had that throw to Khalil Shakir. That was unbelievable. But the Bills from start to finish got dominated. And, it's going to happen. The Ravens are a good team. They were 1-2 going into that game, but they are not a 1-2 team. So, yeah, this is going to be an interesting game. And, kind of looking at, the league rankings when it comes to their offenses and their defenses. So we'll kind of just run through that like I normally do. So, going through it, and both teams are 3-1, might I add. Josh Allen has 7 touchdowns and no interceptions. C.J.Stroud, 6 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Both quarterbacks are playing really well. So, yeah, I expect them to play well in this game. So, looking at passing yards per game, Texans are second, averaging 286.5 passing yards per game. The Bills are only 23rd, averaging 204.8 passing yards per game. Then rushing yards per game, Bills are 17th, Texans are 20th. James Cook has had some good games this year, so I would, let's see if he can, bounce back, and the Bills maybe can establish the run in this game. But the Bills are second in points per game. Texans are 18th. Then on the defensive side of the ball, top 10 against the pass. Texans are giving up an average of 184 passing yards per game. The Bills are giving up an average of 186 passing yards per game. Then against the run, the Bills are 30th, giving up an average of 156.5 rushing yards per game. And the Texans are 13th, giving up an average of 112.8. So, the Texans are kind of middle of the pack. The Bills are bottom 3. Now, the Texans really can't run the ball. So, if they can get Joe Mixon back in this for this game, that would be a huge boost. And then points allowed, the Bills' defense is 11th, and the Texans are 22nd. So, in terms of points allowed, again, the Bills are outside of the top 10. Texans, again, are middle of the pack, a little bit lower than middle of the pack, but still. Again, should be interesting. Again, I anticipate both quarterbacks are going to play well here, but, it's, Stephon Diggs is going to get questions about his time in Buffalo and things like that. That's going to be the topic of conversation. And, for the Bills, outside of, last week against the Ravens, Josh Allen has done fine. Josh Allen, is one of the front runners for MVP right now. And they don't have that number one wide receiver right now. They got some young guys that, Allen is going to continue to work with. Keon Coleman. Khalil Shakir has played well so far this year, although we'll see if he ends up playing because I know he got banged up in the game against the Ravens. Josh Allen got banged up in the game as well. But, the Bills have done fine. They got 2 good tight ends. James Cook has had big games this year. The Bills look good, although things are starting to stack up on the defensive side of the ball, in terms of injuries and also suspensions as well. Von Miller got suspended. He's going to miss some time for his off-the-field incident. So he's out till at least week 9. Taylor Rapp, one of their safeties, he did not practice on Thursday. He's dealing with a concussion. Khalil Shakir, he didn't practice on Thursday. He's got an ankle injury. Ed Oliver was limited at practice, so I guess he's going to play most likely. But, yeah, the Bills are kind of dealing with some injuries and now a suspension. And Von Miller was playing well, but now he's gone. So that's a problem. Tank Dell for the Texans, most likely going to play in this game. But, again, it doesn't seem like Joe Mixon's going to come back. And also they're down Dameon Pierce as well. So it looks like it's going to be Cam Akers and Ungumbuwale once again. So who scored the go-ahead touchdown. But right now the Texans are 1-point underdogs. I actually like the Bills to bounce back here. This is, and I brought this up with the Texans, I want to see them go up against the Bills, against the Chiefs, against the Ravens, and they'll go up against those teams later in the year, around the holiday season. But, these are true tests for the Texans. And already, they went up against the Vikings, who are a really good team right now, and they got smacked around. So this is going to be another test. And are they going to be up for the challenge? And I think, like I said, I think this will be a very competitive game. I think it's going to be close. But I like the Bills to bounce back in this game to get the win. I'm going to say the final score. Let's say the final score is 34-31 Bills. That's going to be my score. I do have my concerns with the Bills' defense after what I saw last week, but they struggle against the run. The Texans, they really don't have a running game right now. But Cam Akers is a capable back. But we'll have to see how that goes. But I think both quarterbacks are it's gonna be a quarterback duel between these two guys. But I got the Bills winning. Again, just the Texans, I haven't really been that impressed with them so far. So I need to see them win a game like this, and then I'll have more confidence in them going forward. But again, I still have them winning the division. It's just, some of the wins that they've had, really all of them, have not been very convincing to me. So, but you could say the same thing about the Bills. I mean, I guess, you look at the Dolphins game. I mean, look, it was week 2, and Tua was healthy for most of that game, and the Bills' defense shut that offense down, and he threw 3 picks. So, but now look at where the Dolphins are right now. The Cardinals, their offense is good, but their defense is not, and then the Jaguars are winless right now. So you could say the same thing about the Bills. So really, a test for both teams. Because when the Texans went up against the Vikings, they got smacked around. The Bills, they got smacked around by the Ravens. So, but I'm going to say the Bills get the win here. But it's going to be a very competitive game. So, and I'm curious to see how Stephon Diggs ends up doing. And it should be a lot of fun. One of the best games of the weekend. But let me know what you guys think. Who do you have winning this game? Let me know in the comments. So we are going to, before we go to break, I just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate, get your comments recognized. Make sure to hit that super chat button to create a super chat of any thought or comment you may have throughout the show to help out the show. We greatly appreciate any contribution you can make to the show. I'll acknowledge whatever super chat, whatever you want to talk about in the super chat of any thought or comment you may have. Makes the show more lively, more entertaining between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. And like I said, we appreciate you guys' viewership each and every day. So any contribution you can make to the show means the world to us as we put out content for you guys each and every day. And also the other way to help out the show is by going to the link at the bottom of the show segment on the ticker, GSMCpodcast.net. That is GSMCpodcast.net. So when we come back from our next break, we will talk about another big game, and that is on Sunday night between two historic franchises, the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll get into that game. We'll talk about it. I'll give you my prediction for it. So, it's going to be another big game here that finishes off our Sunday. So it should be a lot of fun. Cowboys have not been to Pittsburgh in 8 years. So, we'll talk about the last time that Dak Prescott played against the Steelers. We'll talk about that. Also, again, just get into the specifics of the game, some of the matchups to look at, things like that. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we are going to now get into talking about the big matchup on Sunday Night Football between the Dallas Cowboys and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So the Cowboys coming in at 2-2 on the season. Steelers, they dropped their first game of the year, losing a close one to the Indianapolis Colts, 27-24. However, in that game, though, Justin Fields looked pretty good. Had 2 rushing touchdowns, passed for over 300 yards, was making some good throws to George Pickens. Seems like they're slowly but surely opening up this offense for Justin Fields. And the Steelers really didn't run the ball that well in the game against the Colts. So, and that's a big part of their offense. So, we'll see what happens this week. But they might be down a couple of running backs. Jaylen Warren has still not practiced, and also Cordero Patterson as well. So it's going to be Najee Harris, taking the workload, pretty much all the workload. So, but yeah, there were things to like in that Steelers loss. Although I was a little bit surprised on how the defense just did not play well. Because the defense has really been what's been the engine of the team so far this year. I mean, Fields has played well, but the defense is, I think, the main reason why they've gotten off to a good start. But here against the Cowboys, it's going to be an interesting game. And, the picture that I have up here, this is from 2016. And that is the last time that that Dak Prescott played against the Steelers. That's the one and only time he played against the Steelers, because if you remember, the Steelers and the Cowboys did play each other during the COVID season, but Dak Prescott, of course, got hurt with that horrific ankle injury. So, yeah, this is going to be the first time he's played the Steelers in a while. And the game in 2016, that was a classic. That was the second to last year with the Killer Bees, Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and Le'Veon Bell. Ezekiel Elliott had a huge game. I think what did he have, like 3 touchdowns in that game? 3 or 4 touchdowns? I might be wrong, but I think he had 3. Got to go back and look at the box score from that game. But, it's going to be a different kind of game. There's no Dez Bryant. There's no Ben Roethlisberger. There is Ezekiel Elliott, but he is a older player. There's no Antonio Brown. There's no Le'Veon Bell. But I think this is going to be an entertaining game. Yeah, so the final score was 35-20. Dak Prescott passed for over 319 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott had 3 touchdowns in this game. He had 2 rushing and 1 receiving. One of them was on a screen pass that he took to the house. Dez Bryant had a good game, 6 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. And then for the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger, over 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Le'Veon Bell only had 57 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown, but he did have 77 yards receiving and a touchdown. And Antonio Brown, 14 receptions for 154 yards and a touchdown. So, yeah, that was the last time that these two teams met in Pittsburgh. So, yeah, it's going to be different. Probably going to be lower scoring. Zeke is not scoring 3 touchdowns in this game. I can tell you that right now. The Steelers are 2.5-point favorites. Dak Prescott has gotten off to a good start, numbers-wise. Over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns to 2 picks. Justin Fields, 3 touchdowns to 1 pick. And has a couple of rushing touchdowns here. Actually, no, I think he's got a few, because I think he scored one against the Chargers. But, he has 3 rushing touchdowns on the year. And, the Steelers, I'm, curious to see if their defense is going to, step up again. Because, like I said, last week against the Colts was not good. I was a little surprised by their performance. In terms of how the teams are looking coming in, where's the injury report here? So, for the Steelers, they actually lost one of their guards, James Daniels, for the season. He's an Achilles injury. He's out. They already got Troy Fontenot, one of their draft choices. He's on injured reserve. Another offensive lineman, Nate Herbig, he's on injured reserve. So yeah, they're down some guys. They're down some guys here. Of course, Alex Highsmith is out at least for another week. So Cole Holcomb was on the PUP list. It's possible he could be back this week. At least I'm looking here. That would be a huge boost for the defense because he was a good player for them. But yeah, Jaylen Warren still hasn't practiced. So, yeah, it's going to be on Najee Harris, to really get it done in the running game. And then for the Cowboys, most likely they're not going to have... Well, DeMarcus Lawrence, he got placed on injured reserve, so they're going to be down him. Micah Parsons didn't practice. He's doubtful for the game against Pittsburgh. So this Cowboys defense has already not been playing well this year, and now they're going to be down their top 2 players on defense. So that's not good going into this game. So, and then in terms of the league rankings for these squads, so Cowboys, they're 5th in passing yards per game. The Steelers are 20th. Rushing yards per game, the Cowboys are dead last, averaging 75.3 rushing yards per game. The Steelers are averaging 128.5. The Cowboys are 12th in points per game, and the Steelers are 23rd. Then on the defensive side of the ball, Steelers defense is 12th against the pass. Cowboys are 17th. Steelers are 3rd against the run, and the Cowboys can't run the ball, so they're going to be throwing it a bunch of times. The Cowboys, they're giving up an average of 145.8 rushing yards per game. And the Steelers, they're 2nd in points allowed, and the Cowboys' defense is 27th. So, this screams, Steelers, this game. And I'm going to pick the Steelers in this game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, or on the lower-scoring side. But I think, we'll see what happens if Jaylen Warren does end up practicing. Because, if you end up having him, well, you're just going to run him and Najee Harris down that Cowboys defense all night long. And then, Fields could also take off and run with it if he has to as well. So I give the advantage to the Steelers in this matchup. That's not to say the Cowboys can't win this game, but the Cowboys are kind of limited. Their defense is not playing well, but also offensively, they can't run the football. And, they're going to be without Brandon Cooks as well in this game. So who's going to be that other receiver that steps up besides CeeDee Lamb? Because we know CeeDee Lamb is going to have a good game. But who else is going to step up? I know Jacob Ferguson's a good tight end, but of that wide receiver room, who is going to step up? I don't know. And, the Cowboys' offensive line, this is not, you see Tyron Smith in this picture. He's not there. There's no more Doug Free. There's no more Travis Frederick. The only one from that offensive line now is Zach Martin. So, Cowboys' offensive line, I think, is kind of, middle of the pack right now. But, yeah, it's just this offense is limited. And, you see what Tony Pollard did on Monday Night Football. Why did the Cowboys not bring him back? I know he wasn't as good as he was in 2022, but, you still kind of needed him. You got Rico Dowdle, Zeke, and Deuce Vaughn, and they still have not elevated Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook at some point, you at least got to give him a chance. I think he's better than Zeke right now. I mean, you got to give him a shot. I mean, it's looking like it was kind of pointless bringing him in, but that's just me. So, but yeah, I think the Steelers pass rush is going to get to Dak Prescott. It's not going to be like the Giants where they just could not get to him. I think the Steelers are going to get after him. And I think the Steelers are going to run the football effectively in this game. And Fields, I anticipate, is going to, do what he's supposed to do. If this game is a shootout, then Fields is going to have to throw the ball more. But this is a different Cowboys team. Like, this 2016 team, it was a very good team. This iteration of the Cowboys is not the same. They don't have the running game. They really only have one wide receiver that you could trust right now. And the defense is not very good. It's not very good. They've taken even more of a step back with Mike Zimmer as the defensive coordinator. But you're down 2 of your best players. You're already down without Deron Bland. But now you're down Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence. So where is the pass rush coming for this game? The Cowboys kind of got the odds stacked against them here. But again, could they still win? Yeah. But I don't think that's going to be the case here. But I'm going to say the Steelers win, say 21-17. I think we'll it's around the same score as the Thursday night game last week. That was 20-15, 21-17 final score. So we'll see how it goes. But these are two teams that have won a lot of championships over the course of their history. They've matched up in Super Bowls before. And, this might not be the most enticing matchup that these two teams are about to have. But, like I said, the 2016 matchup here was good. There was a highlight that they showed of Ben Roethlisberger when he had that pump fake in Dallas. Faked the camera guy out and was able to throw a touchdown pass to Heath Miller. If you guys know what I'm talking about in that game, that was in 2012. But yeah, obviously the Super Bowls, that's way before my time. That's when my parents were young. So, I don't remember those games. But, I do remember that game that I just brought up. This game here, I was looking at colleges during this game. That's how long ago that was. But, and then obviously the COVID season. The start of that game was Garrett Gilbert. And the Steelers actually almost lost that game. But yeah, Garrett Gilbert was the starter. And we'll see what happens in this matchup. But I anticipate the Steelers win and improve to 4-1 on the season. And the Cowboys are going to drop to 2-3. And yeah, it just doesn't look good right now for Dallas. Dallas just is not. They're another team. I mean, I talked about the Texans not impressing me. The Texans are 3-1. Cowboys are 2-2, but they could very easily be 1-3. Their only convincing win was against the Browns. And look at how the Browns are right now. So, I don't know. That's just me. But let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you have winning? Let me know in the comments of any thoughts you have on this matchup. So, we are going to take our next break. When we come back, we'll preview the game in London between the Vikings and the Jets. And, it's a big game. This is a big game coming up for the Jets. Aaron Rodgers facing off against a former NFC North opponent. So we'll get into that when we return from our next break. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the fourth part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the Jets-Vikings matchup in London. Jets coming in at 2-2 on the season. Vikings, one of the two remaining undefeated teams in the NFL. And, the Jets, they're coming off of that loss to the Broncos that just... It was not great. It was not great. Not great. 10-9 the final score of that game was. And the Vikings, another win. Got a little dicey at the end with the Packers, but they were able to secure that win and improve to 4-0 in the year. Yeah, this is a must-win for the Jets. That loss to the Broncos was not great. You could tell Aaron Rodgers is still not on the same page with Garrett Wilson. And you got to hope that changes, and that needs to change in a hurry if the Jets are going to want to do anything. Also, the Jets didn't really run the football great. Breece Hall was not good. And you got to give these guys more opportunities to run the football, establish a running game. And I think they're going to try to do that here. I would imagine they're going to try to give Breece Hall the ball more. I mean, because, in that weather, and I brought this up. I mean, look at what Breece Hall did against the Patriots the final week of the regular season last year in the snow. That's what they should have been doing in this game. But you know what? Credit to the Broncos defense. The Broncos defense played really well. They've played really well these last couple of weeks against some good teams. I still think the Jets are a good team, but I got to see more from them. You thought after the win against the Patriots, like, okay, they're really going to get it going here, but they took a step back. Now, you could blame the weather. The weather was a factor, but still should have been able to win that game. But the Broncos defense, they shut them down. The Broncos defense shut down the Buccaneers offense. I mean, look what the Bucs offense has done outside of that game against Denver. They beat the Lions in Detroit. They blew out the Commanders. Put up a lot of points against the Falcons last night. Just was on the wrong end of it. And then the Eagles last week. So, I give credit to the Broncos defense. Their defense is legit. But for the Jets, man, got to get it going here. Cannot drop this game. It's going to be tough because after that, you got the Bills, then you're at the Steelers. Those are tough games coming up. I think the Jets can win both of those games, but, the Vikings right now, I think, are the best team in football. And if the Jets could get this win, that would be a huge boost for this team. However, when I look at this matchup, and I look at one of the matchups is the coaches. Kevin O'Connell against Robert Saleh. I got to take Kevin O'Connell. Robert Saleh and this coaching staff is ultimately what is going to hold this team back. And, at the beginning of the year, you looked at this game and you're like, this is a game the Jets can win. And they could still very well win this game. But this game is a lot tougher than what I anticipated before the season. Because Sam Darnold's playing really well. The Vikings defense is playing well. And, they almost have their full complement of weapons. T.J. Hawkinson is going to come back soon. Jordan Addison came back and scored 2 touchdowns in the game against the Packers. So, and on top of that, Aaron Jones has run the football well. And you got Justin Jefferson off to a good start. So the Jets defense is going to have their hands full. Are they going to be able to get after Sam Darnold? This defense has not looked as good as it has been in years past. They looked like they hit their stride against the Patriots. And you know what? They did play well. I mean, look, they only held the Broncos to 10 points. But it's just that touchdown drive to Cortland Sutton made all the difference. But they didn't get to Bo Nix. They didn't get to Bo Nix once. I believe it's just they gotta have a pass rush in this game and get after Sam Darnold, because if not, with all those weapons, it's going to be hard for the Jets to stop him. And the other thing too is, Aaron Rodgers, he got sacked a handful of times against the Broncos. Now you got to deal with this Vikings pass rush, and you're a little banged up on the offensive line. That's going to be a problem. And Aaron Rodgers is a little banged up. You don't want him to get even more banged up. The last time he played an international game, he ended up getting hurt, the thumb injury, and that was part of the reason why the Packers struggled, is him being hurt throughout that whole season. But you don't want him to get even more hurt in this game. You got to protect him. But it's not going to be easy. This Vikings pass rush is really good. Brian Flores has this defense playing really well. He really has turned this defense around. A couple of years ago when they made the playoffs, it was not a good defense. But these last 2 years, it's been a solid unit. And got to give Brian Flores a lot of credit for turning it around there. So, yeah, they're going to get after Aaron Rodgers. But it's up to the Jets' offensive line to make sure that does not happen. So, going into this game, when you look at the injury report, Morgan Moses is still going to be out. C.J. Mosley was limited at practice. He's questionable for the game. Hopefully the Jets can get him back. That would be a huge boost on defense. T.J. Hawkinson, we'll see when he eventually comes back. But, for the most part, the Vikings are healthy going into this game. Like I said, the Jets are without Morgan Moses, who maybe will be coming back the following week. But, yeah, we'll see what happens in this game. Right now, so when this line first opened up, the Jets were 4-point favorites. Now they're 3-point underdogs. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think Rodgers will play good in this game as long as he's protected and not running for his life. And I expect Sam Darnold to play well in this game too. When you look at the league rankings for these teams now, the Jets are 16th in passing yards per game. The Vikings are 11th. Rushing yards per game, the Vikings are 14th. The Jets are 27th. So you want to see that go up. Breece Hall has to have a big game here, along with Braylon Allen, who's been a good player for them so far in his rookie year campaign. And then in terms of points per game, Vikings are 4th. Jets are 22nd. Got to get the ball in the end zone. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Jets defense is actually second against the pass, giving up an average of 150.8 passing yards per game. The Vikings are dead last, giving up an average of 300.3 passing yards per game. And then against the run, Vikings do a good job. They're second against the run, giving up an average of 75 yards per game, and the Jets are 21st, giving up an average of 128.5 rushing yards per game. And then points allowed, Vikings are 4th, Jets are 5th. So these are two good. I mean, so yeah, the Jets defense at times does not look great, but both teams are top 10 in points allowed. But yeah, I lean towards the Vikings in this game. I don't know, until they are knocked off, and I know I went away from them against the Texans, and then I went back to them against the Packers. I'm not going to go away from them here. It's just I want to take the Jets, but I'm not confident in them in this game. I'm not. I just think the Vikings are playing really well. Like I said, to me right now, they are the best team in football, although there's some concerns from the win against the Packers. I mean, they let the Packers get back in the game. Sam Darnold did turn the ball over. So maybe they're coming back down to earth a little bit. And maybe in this game, maybe the Jets pull off the upset, because that's what it would be right now. But I still got to go with the Vikings here. They're the better coach team. I mean, the Jets, you had 10 days in between the win against the Patriots and the game against the Broncos, and they just were not prepared. This doesn't mean me not picking them doesn't mean I'm off the Jets bandwagon, but they got to figure it out. And I don't know if it's going to be this week. So, that's why I'm leaning towards the Vikings. I'm going to say final score. I'm going to say 27-20. I'm going to say is the final score. I mean, this is a team Aaron Rodgers knows very well. So, look, I think he's going to go out there and play well. As long as he's protected. They got to protect him. That is one of the biggest things. If they can't protect him, then forget it. They got no shot. But if they can give him time, he gets on the same page with his receivers. I mean, Allen Lazard and Mike Williams. I mean, Garrett Wilson has made plays too. It's not like he hasn't. But you could tell there's something off. And they got to get it together. And maybe reinforcements are on the way. Maybe Devontae Adams ends up coming in, and then your top 3 wide receivers are Devontae Adams, Allen Lazard, / Mike Williams, and Garrett Wilson. That's not bad. That's not a bad receiving core. It's a very good. That's, you get Devontae Adams in there. That is a very good receiving core. So we'll have to wait and see if that ends up happening, but it's not going to be this week. It's going to be down the road at some point. So, but let me know what you guys think about this game. Who do you think will win? What are some of your predictions for the game? Let me know in the comments. Can the Jets knock off the Vikings and give them their first loss? That remains to be seen. I mean, the Vikings at some point will lose a game. They will. They're not going undefeated. But, I mean, they are, for a team that I had 6 wins. I only had them at 6 wins. They have proven me wrong. Well, Sam Darnold's really proven me wrong, because I didn't think he was going to be playing as good as he is right now. I thought he would be decent, but when you took a look at that schedule and you saw that they were playing the Texans, the 49ers, the Packers, excluding the Giants, even though I thought the Giants could win that game, you thought the Vikings were not going to have a very good record up until this point. But they've won some tough games, and this is a tough game here for them, and then they take on the Lions soon. So they are really, they're proving a lot of people wrong, including myself. But but I always said they had a good roster. It's just the quarterback position. That's really what it was going to come down to. And Sam Darnold is playing really well. And I think that's going to continue in this game against his former team. And he's already beaten his former team before. He beat him with the Panthers. But let's see how he plays in this game here. The second international game of the season. Forgot about the game in Brazil. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this game. Like I said, who do you think is going to win? Again, this is a big game for the Jets. They got to win this game. But I'm not picking them. I'm picking the Vikings. So we're going to take our final break of the show. And then when we come back, we're going to take a look at the rest of the matchups for this weekend. We'll take a look at the matchups in college football. And then we'll look at the rest of the matchups in the NFL. And that is what we will, and that's how we'll wrap up the show for today. So, for one final time today, stick around. And we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to now get into talking about the rest of the games for this weekend, including college football, Week 6, and just the remaining matchups that I haven't gotten to in the NFL. So we'll start off in college. So we got some matchups tonight. So the ones to kind of focus on, I guess, is 3-1 Syracuse and then 4-0 UNLV. UNLV is 6.5-point favorites. That's on FS1 at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. And then you also got Oregon against Michigan State, number 6 ranked Oregon, I might add. 4-0, 24-point favorites against Michigan State, who's 3-2 on the season. You also got TCU and Houston, and you also have New Hampshire against Harvard, and Jacksonville State and Kennesaw State, who's 0-4 on the year. So, I mean, really the matchups, I guess most people are probably going to watch is, the Syracuse, UNLV, and then Michigan State, Oregon. And then for the Saturday slate of games, SMU, who's 4-1 on the season, they're 6.5-point underdogs against number 22 ranked Louisville, who's 3-1 on the year. UNC and Pittsburgh, or in Pitt, rather just say that. Pitt is 4-0 on the season. UNC is 3-2, 2.5-point favorites. You got Penn State and UCLA. Penn State's 27.5-point favorites. Trying to see. Well, you got Auburn and Georgia. I mean, Auburn's 2-3. Georgia's 3-1. Of course, suffering their first loss last week to Alabama. Can Ole Miss get back on track? They're taking on South Carolina, who's 3-1 on the season. Ohio State's taking on Iowa. That's at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Iowa's 3-1. West Virginia and Oklahoma State. Alabama's taking on Vanderbilt. Clemson and FSU. There's going to be no DJ in that game. FSU's actually 1-4 now. So they finally got off the. Well, that was from a couple weeks ago. They beat Cal, but yeah, they lost to SMU. And then you got Boise State. They're taking on Utah State. Tennessee and Arkansas, that could be a good game. Tennessee's 4-0, Arkansas 3-2. USC is taking on Minnesota, Michigan, and Washington. That's at 7:30. That could be a good game to keep an eye on. Miami taking on Cal at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Miami, of course, their game last week against Virginia Tech, that was unbelievable. How that finished off, but yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any game that I look at and I'm like, oh, this is a must watch. But you know, there's some good games on the slate. I mean, I guess Louisville SMU. That's a game to pay attention to. Boston College is 4-1. They're taking on Virginia, who's 3-1 as well. I think the one game that I'd be interested. I mean, the Michigan-Washington game I'm kind of interested in. Now, I'm not going to be able to. Well, some of the games during the day I'll be able to watch, but I will be in attendance for the ALDS Game 1 between the Yankees and the Royals. I will be there. And also, if you're a baseball fan, how about that game last night with the Mets pulling off that comeback win in the 9th inning? But, yeah, so I'll be there. I'm not really going to be watching this full slate. So then we'll get to let's get to the NFL then. So the rest of the games on the slate. So we talked about the Jets and the Vikings. We got the Panthers and the Bears. Bears coming off of a win. Panthers coming off of a loss. Bears right now are 4-point favorites. This one's kind of tough to pick. Now, you know, the Bears were able to run the football better in the game against the Rams. You know, the Panthers, their offense has looked better with Andy Dalton as the starting quarterback. So, yeah, this one's kind of, I'm going back and forth with who I should pick. I think the Bears will win, but right now I got the Panthers with the points. You know, again, because Andy Dalton has looked, you know, the Panthers offense has looked functional with Andy Dalton as the quarterback. And, you know, the Bears have a good defense, but maybe the Panthers could keep it close, maybe, to cover the number. But I got the Bears winning. This game I keep going back and forth with as well. Ravens-Bengals. Ravens are the better team right now. But I may lean towards the Bengals because, well, for one thing, they haven't won a home game. They lost both their home games to start off the year. This is a divisional game. And, you know, the Bengals, I don't think they want, well, I don't think. I know they don't want to drop to 1-4 on the year. So this one's tough. I mean, the Ravens right now are the better team. They are coming off of that big win over the Bills. So maybe this game is kind of, you know, one that brings them back down to earth a little bit. And the Bengals maybe pull off the win. The Ravens did sweep the season series last year. So, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't really know. I right now I got the Bengals, but I mean, I think it's going to be a close game, but I don't feel great about taking the Bengals, but we'll see. We already talked about the Bills and the Texans, the Colts and the Jaguars. So the Jags are at home for this game. Might be no Jonathan Taylor in this game, but Anthony Richardson, I think, will play. It seems. I could be wrong, though, but the Jags got to win at some point, right? They have to win. So I actually will take the Jags in this game, although I do not feel great about it. Although the Jags, they did show you, you know, a little bit of a pulse against the Texans. Although the Texans kind of gifted them some points early on with the muffed punt. But still, the Jags could have won that game. This is a game they got to win, get themselves back on the right track, at least get them in the win column. So I actually will take the Jags in this game. Dolphins and the Patriots. Yeah, not really that intriguing of a matchup here. Dolphins, yeah, they are just reeling right now without Tua. I know Tua was not great before he got hurt. I keep saying that, but I mean, they definitely would be playing better with him at quarterback. And look, I said Tyler Huntley is the best option of what they have, and I still believe that. So they got to play more to his style. I think that's something that was a topic of conversation after the game against the Titans. But you know, the Patriots at home, good defense. I actually am going to take the Patriots in this game, although again, don't feel great about it. Then we got the Browns and the Commanders. The Commanders are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. The Browns are reeling. I mean, they could have won that game against the Raiders. They had some missed opportunities. I might take the Browns with the points, actually. Because you know what? They are coming off of 2 straight losses to the Giants and to the Raiders. I mean, they got to get back in the win column, too. Now, I don't know if they are going to win this game, but maybe they could at least cover the number. So I took them with the points. Because a lot of the picks I made originally, I was taking a lot of the favorites. I'm like, I can't do that. But you know what's going to happen, though? The ones that I switched to take the underdogs, those ones I'm going to end up losing, and the ones that I have the favorites in, I'll end up losing. That's just how it's going to go. So don't be surprised if I end up with like 4 wins at the end of the week. So I actually will take the Browns with the points, although, again, don't feel great about it. But, you know, the Browns have a good defense, so maybe they keep it close. We'll see. Then we got the Raiders and the Broncos. Broncos defense, that's a defense that's been playing well. I talked about it a little bit before. Raiders, they're coming off of that win against the Browns and could be getting Max. I think Max Crosby is going to be back this week, I would imagine, right? Devontae Adams is going to be out still with that hamstring injury. Look, I like where the Broncos are at right now defensively, and I think they win this game. So I'll take them, and they cover the points. And then a few games left here, Cardinals and the 49ers. Cardinals are 7.5-point underdogs. You know, the 49ers, they got back in the win column, but you know what? I actually think the Cardinals will cover the number. The Cardinals put up points against the 49ers. However, you know, the 49ers are going to put up points against the Cardinals defense. So this game could be a shootout, but I actually will take the Cardinals here. You know, they're coming off as 2 straight losses. I expect them to play better in this game, so at least to cover the number. But I got the 49ers winning. Christy Lewis in the chat says Dolphins if they are playing in Miami. Oh, yeah, if you're talking about the game, yeah. But because the Patriots are at home, yeah, I lean towards the Patriots. That's going to be a good game, Browns-Commanders. Yeah, I hope so. I mean, because, you know what, like the Commanders, they've been blowing teams out, but, you know, they got to come back. Another team that's got to come back down to earth. You know, I still think that they'll probably win the game, but don't be surprised if this game's close. The Browns have a good defense, and, you know, they're a desperate team. They need to win. So this game's got to be this game, I would imagine, is going to be somewhat competitive, right? But if the Commanders blow them out, that won't surprise me. So then a couple games left. Packers and the Rams. Packers coming in at 2-2. Rams 1-3. Both teams losing. Rams losing against the Bears. Packers losing against the Vikings. Look, Jordan Love had a rough game, a rough first half. The turnovers were bad, and you know the field goal kicking was bad as well. So you could correct those 2 things. I think the Packers are the better team here. The Rams, they're shorthanded right now. They're waiting on their guys to come back. So I like the Packers to win and cover, but again, nothing would surprise me. But Packer fans are going to take over that stadium. You know that. And then finally, because we already previewed the Sunday night game, Giants-Seahawks. Giants might be without Devin Singletary and Malik Neighbors, so I don't know how they're going to generate any kind of offense. I mean, Wan'Dale Robinson will get more involved, but and he had a good game against Dallas. But yeah, if you're down Malik Neighbors and you're a team that struggles to put up points already, and you're going to be down Devin Singletary because he hasn't practiced, I mean, and you're in Seattle, got to take the Seahawks. Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites. Geno Smith's playing well. Yeah, I got to take the Seahawks here. Got to take the Seahawks here. So the Giants, if they lose this game, they're going to end up falling to 1-4 on the year, which is not good. So to kind of run through all the NFL games here, so right now I got the Vikings, the Panthers, the Bengals, Bills, Jaguars, Patriots, Browns, Broncos, Cardinals, Packers, Giants, Steelers. And then, of course, we'll preview the Monday game on Monday. So let me know what you guys think, though, about that. Anything. And actually, my friend just texted in our chat that Malik Neighbors is indeed out. So, yeah, definitely taking the Seahawks in the game. No questions asked. But, again, nothing would surprise me. I mean, the Giants did beat, I know it was with no fans, but they did beat the Seahawks in Seattle with Colt McCoy quarterback. So, anything is possible, as Kevin Garnett once said. So, yeah, that is it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows as well. Give the other shows some love. Make sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. We greatly appreciate it. So, yeah. With that being said, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day. Enjoy the games this weekend, and I will talk to you guys on Monday. Take care.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.